Hello, the PSN community. I'm Asif, the community manager, and welcome to today's Feature Friday. I'm joined today by the fabulous Danny O'Brien from BD Short Stays. Welcome, Danny. It's great to have you. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, mate. Looking forward to having a good chat with yourself and letting people know a bit more about myself and what I do within the industry.
Lovely stuff. So you've mentioned it there, but would you like to tell our viewers what exactly you do?
Yeah, so I'm a buy-to-let landlord. I'm a serviced accommodation operator and landlord, shall we say, and I have most recently moved into serviced accommodation management. In between that, I've also done sourcing. Would you say a flip if it's your own residential home? I'm not too sure. But we've done quite a bit in the last 3 years. But our main focus right now is on serviced accommodation and specifically serviced accommodation management.
Okay, so you've obviously done quite a bit, but how did you get into it all?
Funny story. Me and my now fiance, we bought our first home 3 years ago. It was during COVID. We was in this bubble of being able to buy a very, very low interest rate, get ourselves on the property ladder. And at the time, I was also playing semi-professional football. And during COVID, apart from certain elite levels of sport, all amateur / semi-professional levels stopped. So I spent a lot of my time on a weekly basis playing football, training, probably roughly around about 15 to 20 hours a week. And once we bought this property, we did a refurb. We probably spent about 10 grand on a refurb, moved in, loved it, loved the whole process because we was in this little bubble of buying your first home, going to IKEA 50 times a week and all these things that you do when you buy your first home. And once all that settled and everything went back to some sort of normality, but I still didn't have that weekly release of football. It made me kind of question, what am I going to do after? So what am I going to do after this big part of my life? Yeah, okay, it's semi-professional, but there's a huge commitment there. And it was, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? What interests me? And as I said, I really, really enjoyed the whole process of buying my own home, renovating it, doing it to the style in which I wanted. And it's really weird. We were sat there in the living room one night. I think it was like a Friday night, stuck in lockdown, sort of couldn't leave the house. And there was something stupid on Channel 4. It was like $1 Million Homes. And we just sat there watching it. I said, do you know what? I think I'm going to get into property. We've got a bit of money spare from obviously my career and so on and so forth, and I want to put that into property. Becca being Becca just went, well, I know every time you do something, you don't do it half-hearted, so go for it. So I think day later, started reading the books. Week later, started doing the YouTube, started looking at other people, got into the social media side of things and saw what other people were doing. Got a mentor, and then went on to a 3-day accelerate course, which I know that you've been part of as well. And from there, it kind of snowballed into my strategy for where I was in my life, and what I wanted was to go into vanilla beige buy-to-lets. I liked them at the time. They made a lot of sense, which was great. And we decided to start buying buy-to-let properties. From there, we had them up and running, and we moved into buying a mixed-use unit, which was probably the biggest project to date at this point. This was probably about a year into our property journey. And that was it was a hairdresser's with 2 flats above it. And we agreed that in March 2 years ago, and a year ago, and in March this year it fell through at the final hurdle. We stood still for a year, and what that made me do is rethink, okay, well, as of February this year, I want to do something different with the buy-to-lets. I could see the interest rates rising, and thinking, how is this viable? So we were always going to move into serviced accommodation. It just happened a lot quicker than expected. So once again, I did exactly the same thing. I read all the books, I watched all the YouTube channels, I got myself a mentor and a quite intense training program. And by matter of fact, the tenant moved out of our property and we turned that into a serviced accommodation, and that's been running since August and has had 100% occupancy all the way up until the 5th of November, and that current stay is probably going to continue up until summer next year. So that's how I got into it. I think the answer probably, which no people probably like to hear, is slight boredom, slight not knowing what I was going to do, and taking an interest in something that I never thought I would, due to that little bubble of buying your first home, really. And as I said, since then, we've done quite a few things, and now we are solely focused on the serviced accommodation strategy now.
A great story, and certainly something that's really relatable as well. But what would you say your biggest win has been so far?
I've been thinking about this question quite a bit, actually, because I think my biggest win and my biggest learning curve kind of mold into one. So my biggest win is the most recent project that we've done, and that project is turning a buy-to-let, vanilla-based buy-to-let, into a quite profitable serviced accommodation. Now, the backstory of this whole project is the reason why it's my biggest win, but it's also my biggest learning curve. So that property itself, we bought 2 years ago. We bought it for £73,000. It was a ready-made buy-to-let. We did £1,000 worth of refurbishments to it, and then let it out for £650 a month. That tenant stayed in that property for 2 years. They paid on time. They never had an issue. When the rent was increased due to in line with inflation, they accepted the rent increase. And then by the time that they actually decided to move jobs and do a career themselves, which meant that we'd have to take a lower income from the start, they said we didn't want to fault on our rent payments, so we're going to hand in our notice. All this time, I was looking at this property as a really good passive income. As I said, it was cash flowing as a buy-to-let about £400 a month, which for buy-to-lets is really good. But the letting agent wasn't at his standards compared to my standards. They didn't add up. And when we got that property back on the last weekend in May this year, we were in complete disbelief with the state of the property. Even though we had the reports done and the property checkups, they were, in my opinion, kind of budged to be in favour of it not being as bad as what we actually thought. To kind of, we're getting paid. We've heard that there's a couple of little issues with the property that are minor maintenance that need to be fixed. We're happy to do that. And then when we got in there, it wasn't that case. It was a £25,000 refurb. And for someone as a buy-to-let landlord, what do you get in return for providing accommodation for someone who pays you each month? What do you get when you've got a £25,000 bill? Well, the answer is the security deposit of £650. So what we did with that was we rolled up our sleeves and said, right, we said that we were going to do serviced accommodation. We've been working over the last 3 months to educate ourselves, put systems in place, learn the strategy, and do everything that's needed. This is the perfect opportunity. So we did the refurb, which once again we did it within budget, actually probably around about £4,000 below budget. And then we got that online, and within 2 days we had a 28-day booking. And that 28-day booking is with a care company who provide temporary accommodation for misplaced children. So for us, it really, really fits with what we want to do with property. Property, yeah, it's there to make money. Yeah, it's there to build a legacy. It's to get the capital appreciation. But while that's going on in the background, if you can use your property, your assets to actually help people, it's called serviced accommodation for a reason, because you're providing a service. And as I said, that booking's been there since the 16th of August. Their current booking is up to the 5th of November. But that's going to continue throughout the Christmas and all the way up to probably round about June next year. So my biggest win there is being able to turn a situation that was quite dire into something really positive. We're providing a really good service for the young gentleman who's currently being looked after there, and for me, that's brilliant. If you look at return on investment, by the time this booking finishes, we should have recuperated all the costs from that refurb. So just under a year worth of bookings to equate to the £25,000 that we had to put in to put the property back to a livable state, I would say. So for me, that's my biggest win, because it was something that was thrown upon us immediately. As I said, we went in there and thought on the bank holiday weekend that we was going to be able to go in there, take a look, spruce it up a little bit, and then let it out again. And my fiance Becca came with me just to take a look, and after 20 minutes I told her to go home and not come back until I allow her to, because my personal opinion was that the property wasn't in a livable state. I didn't want my family in there because it was so bad. And yeah, so that would be my biggest win, would being able to turn a situation which was quite, as I said, serious into a really profitable asset, but also using that asset for a really good cause as well.
And that's an absolute credit to yourself as well, because obviously that was a massive, massive setback, but you've seen some opportunity there and you've absolutely ran with it. So you've obviously mentioned your biggest win, and I think you've kind of touched on your biggest learning, but what would you say your biggest learning has been so far?
This one is, it might divide opinion. I don't think it will. Property is not passive. No matter what strategy you do, no matter how you get involved in property, whether that's rent to rents, whether that's buy to lets, whether that's commercial, to anything that you put in place, I will guarantee you it is not passive. You might think it is, and there's so many ways in which you can mitigate that and make it as passive and as hassle-free as possible. But if you look at my buy-to-let, perfect example, that buy-to-let I thought was passive. I never had any maintenance issues. I never had any tenant issues. So from what I knew, and I had a property agent and management agent who were going in, collecting the rent, making sure everything was okay, and I was getting paid each month, and it was like brilliant. What a passive income this is. Would you consider that to be passive when I get the keys back to that property and I've got £25,000 worth of damages that I've got to fix? The answer is no, because no one can just pull out £25,000 worth of a capital straight away in one go to go, right, okay, I'll just do this. Do you know what I mean? That's where it then became not passive. And as I said, for me, that's the reason why it's my biggest learning is buy-to-let is considered unanimously as a very passive income, which in parts it is, but then every time there's a tenant changeover, landlords have to reinvest into that property. They have to do the refurbs. They have to have a look at it and say, how can I make sure that this property is to a standard for the next tenant? But also on top of that is what people don't realise is that there's a perception of landlords, specifically in buy-to-let and residential properties, is every single landlord in the UK has 45 properties. They drive an Aston Martin. They live in a 5-bedroom detached house in the country. When the actual reality of it is most landlords within the UK are working class people who have saved enough money in order to go and buy another asset for the children, for the legacy, for the future family, for capital appreciation, and we might make £100 to £200 a month off it. People don't see it like that, and that's the reason why, in my opinion, is property isn't passive. Because if a buy-to-let, if someone says I'm not going to pay the rent this month and I'm going to prioritise buying a PlayStation, then us as landlords, we can't really do anything about it. It's not, so we can't go charge it in there saying you must pay us our rent because of the tenant rights that are in place, and rightly so. So yeah, Matt, that would be my biggest learning curve. Is property isn't passive. You can always find ways to make it as passive as possible, but the reality is it's not. You've got to work hard. As I said, you've got to work so hard to gain what you want, and then once you have got what you want, keeping it up to standard. That's something that falls on the landlord. And yeah, as I said, the best management agency out there will help mitigate that, but there is always still work for the landlord to do if they want to continue to develop and continue to keep the property up to standard. So
Some very good insights there as well. What would you say your plans for the future are?
So the plan for the future in respects to the baseline never changes, and that is me and my fiance will continue building our portfolio in the background, and that's something that's never going to change. We will continue to purchase properties. We'll continue to refinance and continue to go and buy more towards the serviced accommodation side of things now. We still have a couple of buy-to-lets, but it will be more kind of moving towards serviced accommodation. Reasoning for that is because it's more cash flow. The other reason is you have more control over the property. I spoke to you about this. Is having control over your property for me is one of the most important things in property, because it's your asset. You spent a lot of money, hard work in order to have that property. You should be the one in control of it. So for me, it's going to be continuing to build that in the background. But our main focus now is actually on the management side of serviced accommodation. Reason for that is because I've kind of been there and done it. I've been a buy-to-let landlord. I've seen the problems with buy-to-let. I've also seen the good side of buy-to-let, but we want to be helping other landlords who have been in similar positions to ourselves. If you're a landlord who is looking to get involved in serviced accommodation because your buy-to-lets aren't working anymore, and they're not up to what you perceive to be a good regular income for yourself, we can have that conversation and see whether it's viable. If it's a landlord who, similar to me, got a property back in complete state, knew that the work had to be done, but wanted a quicker return on their investment once they put the property back to its livable state, then we would be happy to help in that sense as well. So for us, as I said, for me being a landlord myself, and also doing serviced accommodation, I want to be able to offer that service to other landlords. The area in which I work in, I call it the East Lancs corridor. We will move into Manchester. We will go into Liverpool, but in between Liverpool and Manchester, there's so many smaller towns and cities that have got a really big market for contractors and for people staying away. If you're looking at places like Wigan, Bolton, Culture, Warrington, St Helens, Widnes, Lee, Atherton, Tilsley, Worsley, Eccles, all these places that aren't considered to be in the city centres, but they're really, really good areas to invest and also to bring in contractors, because there's so much work going on outside the city because the cities have become so big. So our main focus now for the future is helping other landlords do similar to what we've done with our properties, while we continue to do the same thing in the background.
Fantastic. So there's been a lot of golden nuggets throughout this interview, but if you could go back to being 16, what advice would you give yourself?
I think my main one would be mindset. So anyone who doesn't know me personally, which will probably be a lot of people, a little bit of background on me. At the age of 16, I just signed a 4-year deal with Aston Villa. I was playing for England, and I'd just signed a 3-year deal with Adidas to be one of their sponsored players. So I used to get all the boots, used to get all the tracksuits, I used to get everything. And because of my mindset at the age of 16, probably up until probably 24, I would say, because of my limited mindset and because of my negative mindset, I had a huge opportunity and I didn't take it. I'm sat here now speaking to you as a 27-year-old who now has a property business, who also is involved in construction sales, knowing for a fact that every day when I wake up, I had a fantastic opportunity as a young professional footballer and I didn't take it. And it wasn't down to ability, it wasn't down to fitness, injuries, or anything like that. It was simply down to my mindset wasn't right. And now I can sit there and say, well, my mindset is right now. And if I had the mindset that I do today, back when I was 16 and moving up through the professional game, would I still probably be playing? And the answer is yes, I would be. The matter of fact is that I'm not, and that's on me. It's no one else's problem. It's no one else's fault. But I missed a huge opportunity because of my mindset. And I've probably never said this out loud, really, but I wake up every single day thinking I have this huge opportunity to benefit myself, my family, my friends, and I never took it. And you sit there going crazy, going, why didn't it work out? Was it because of this? Was it because of that? And then eventually the penny drops and you say, no, it's on me. And for me, it's because of that mindset. My mindset was if something went wrong, it wasn't my fault. If something went wrong, it was bad luck. If something went wrong, I would just go, it's what it is. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now my mindset is, I call it the solution-based mindset. If I see an issue, if I see a problem, it's right, okay, how do I find a solution? And that goes for everything, really. That doesn't just go for professional sport, it goes for property, it goes for everyday life. If your mindset is positive and solution-based, you're going to get positive results. If your mindset's negative, then don't expect positive results. And that would be probably my biggest bit of advice. I think I said it to you last week. Dan, ground up development while still working a full-time job with all these different issues that he had on site. His mentality got him through that, not his expertise in ground up developments, because, well, he didn't really have them. Do you know what I mean? It was his first development. And I said it to him, I said it to you, is everything that anyone can take away from his talk. Yes, you've got the technical information and you've got the knowledge, but one of the biggest things everyone in that room should have been taken from his presentation was his mindset into, there's a problem, I will find a solution, and no matter what, I'll continue doing that, and that's why he is where he is. So yeah, that would probably be my number one kind of bit of advice for myself 11 years ago.
Oh, that's some fantastic advice. Certainly golden nuggets as well. And it's really good to see you having that mindset now and being ready to tackle the property world. So, absolutely fantastic interview. There's something that I want to do with you, and it's called a game. It's called This or That. So it's basically the person behind the property, and for you, behind the football as well. So I'll give you two options. Option one might be apple. Option two might be banana, and you have to quickly pick which one you prefer. So the first one is Italian food or Chinese food.
Italian.
Okay, brilliant. Facebook or LinkedIn?
Facebook.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs every day of the week. Sorry, any
Brilliant.
cat lovers, but I'm a dog man.
Yeah, I think pretty much majority of people say dogs as well. Success or happiness?
I think they come part and parcel together. I'm going to sit
Okay.
on the fence. I think if you're successful, you will be happy.
But which one do you prefer?
Happiness, because it comes with success.
Okay, brilliant. And the final one, would you rather swim with sharks or walk with lions?
Swim with sharks, because I know that Becca would really love to do that. She loves the ocean. So if I had a choice, I would do that to kind of get one up on her and say, look what I've done and you haven't. So
Very, very brave. Right. You've been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our lovely viewers?
no, just obviously thanks for letting me be able to share my story. If anyone has any questions regarding serviced accommodation or any way I can help, then please you'll see me at the networking meetings. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at BD Short Stays. And yeah, as I said, we're looking to help people, and if I can help in any way, I'll do everything I can to do that. And a special kind of shout out to yourself and all the team is the networking events that you guys are putting on at the minute. They are, I would say, rough and ready and raw, which is brilliant because it's showing you the proper side of property. It's not showing you, I did a flip and made £2 million in 2 weeks. This is the reality of it, and I think that is really, really, really important to have those type of networking events. So yeah, I also would like to just give a quick shout out to you and the team for that.
Well, thank you very much, Danny. I'll pay you later for that shout out. Appreciate that. Well, PSN community, I hope you've enjoyed today's Feature Friday. But for now, keep being amazing, and we'll see you very soon. Bye now.